The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I navigated the familiar winding road to Moonrise Lake. 6 months had passed since I'd inherited Grandpa William's cabin, and this was only my third visit back. Work at Sterling Communications had consumed my life, leaving me desperate for the sanctuary this place provided. As the forest opened up to reveal the log cabin nestled against the shoreline, I felt that familiar tug in my chest. The wraparound porch, the stone fireplace chimney, the private dock extending into the crystal-clear water, this wasn't just property. It was the repository of my most precious memories. This place teaches you who you really are. Maya, Grandpa William used to tell me, his weathered hands gesturing toward the lake, not through comfort, but through the choices you make when it matters most. From age 8 to 22, I'd spent summers here learning life lessons that no classroom could teach. When anxiety crippled me in high school, it was here that Grandpa taught me meditation. When I doubted my career path in college, we'd sit on that very dock planning my future. My grandfather had been diagnosed with heart failure 3 years ago. During his final year, I'd moved temporarily to his Portland home to provide care. That's when Daniel, my brother-in-law, started dropping hints about the cabin. "William loves that old place," he'd say. "Sarah and I dream about raising kids somewhere like that, away from all this urban chaos." 2 months before Grandpa passed, he'd updated his will. "Maya," he'd said, looking directly at me, "the cabin goes to you. You understand what makes that place special. But remember, ownership means making hard choices about who deserves to share it." Now, at 29, I desperately needed both the peace and the wisdom this place offered. As I unpacked, my phone buzzed. "Daniel, hope you're reconsidering the cabin situation. We could really use some family time there." I deleted it without responding. 2 hours later, as I sat on the dock with wine, my phone rang. Sarah's strained voice filled the air when I answered. "Maya, I need to tell you something. Daniel and I separated 3 weeks ago." The wine glass nearly slipped from my hands. "What happened?" "He's been seeing Emma from his office. She's pregnant 7 months." Sarah's voice cracked. "The timeline means he was cheating while we cared for Grandpa." The betrayal hit hard. "I'm so sorry. Where are you staying?" "Mom's place." "But Maya, there's more. I found hidden debts when packing maxed credit cards, overdue notices, even a foreclosure warning on rental property I didn't know existed. He's drowning financially." A chill ran down my spine. "What does that have to do with—" "He's been obsessing about the cabin since Grandpa died, talking about family resources and shared obligations. I think he sees it as his financial salvation." After we hung up, I stared across the darkening lake, the peaceful sanctuary suddenly feeling vulnerable. That evening, Daniel texted Maya, "Need a favor. Can I use the cabin this weekend? Just for a couple days. I'm in a tight spot." I replied, "No, Daniel, that won't work." His response was swift. "Come on, it's just sitting empty. Family helps family." "No, please respect that. Thought you were different. Guess I was wrong." His final message made my stomach turn. "This is happening whether you like it or not. Family takes care of family." I sent one clear response. "To be absolutely clear, you do not have permission to use my cabin. Do not go there. Do not ask again." His reply was a thumbs down emoji. Friday afternoon. After another brutal week, I decided to escape to the cabin. I stopped for groceries, comfort foods, wine, ingredients for the pancakes Grandpa and I used to make together. That's when I saw it. A large moving truck sat in my driveway, its rear doors open wide. Boxes were stacked on the porch, some spilling contents, kitchen appliances, baby items, framed photos. A blue sedan with a baby on board sticker sat beside the truck. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I parked behind the truck, blocking it in. Through the windows, I could see furniture being arranged, men's clothing on the porch railing, a half-assembled crib against the wall. Walking around the perimeter, I peered inside. The main living area was in chaos with boxes and unfamiliar furniture. Grandpa's antique fishing rods, which had always hung reverently on the wall, were propped carelessly in a corner. Through the bedroom window, I saw a woman with auburn hair hanging a mobile of woodland creatures over what used to be my reading nook. The space had been transformed with yellow paint and baby decals. They were setting up a nursery in my cabin, without permission. Using my key, I entered. "Hello," I called out, steadier than I felt. A startled gasp came from the bedroom, followed by the appearance of a very pregnant woman. She had kind eyes and looked early 30s, one hand protectively over her belly. "Oh," she exclaimed, "you must be Sarah. Daniel said you might stop by to help. I'm Emma." The assumption knocked me off balance. "I'm not Sarah. I'm Maya Chen. This is my cabin." Confusion spread across Emma's face. "Maya Daniel's sister-in-law, but Daniel said you were letting us stay here while we house hunt. He said you offered it, especially with the baby coming in 6 weeks." My blood ran cold. "Emma, I never offered the cabin to Daniel. In fact, I explicitly told him he could not use it. This property belongs solely to me." Emma's face paled. "But we're moving in. Daniel said we could stay as long as needed. He gave notice on his apartment, and I ended my lease last month. He said you were happy to help during our transition." "None of that is true," I said firmly. "Daniel doesn't have permission to be here." The sound of tires interrupted us. Daniel's black truck pulled up beside my car. He emerged carrying takeout bags, whistling as if this were his home. "Maya," he said, forcing a smile when he saw me. "What a surprise. Didn't expect you until tomorrow." "I never said I was coming tomorrow. I told you not to come here at all." My voice was dangerously quiet. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" He set the food down, spreading his hands placatingly. "Let's not make a scene in front of Emma. She's in a delicate condition." "Answer the question." Daniel's expression hardened. "Look, you're being unreasonable. You have this huge cabin sitting empty while we need a place. It's a perfect solution." "A perfect solution would be respecting my property and boundaries." "It's family property," Daniel argued, voice rising. "William would have wanted it to help family in need." "Don't you dare invoke my grandfather. This cabin was left specifically to me." Daniel stepped closer, using his height intimidatingly. "Be reasonable. Maya, Emma is 7 months pregnant. We need stability. We've already started moving in. You can't throw a pregnant woman out." I glanced at Emma, who looked increasingly distressed. "You put her in this position, not me. You lied about having permission." "We're not leaving," Daniel said flatly. "I've set up mail forwarding and utilities in my name. The movers return tomorrow with the rest. This is happening. Maya." "This is illegal. It's trespassing." Daniel laughed coldly. "Go ahead. Call the cops on a pregnant woman. See how that plays with the family, with locals. You'll be the villain." The manipulation was breathtaking. He had orchestrated this, counting on social pressure to force my compliance. "I also spoke with the neighbors," Daniel continued with a cold smile. "Told them we're moving in to help maintain the family property while you're busy in the city. They're thrilled to have year-round residents. Everyone thinks it's wonderful. You're trying to establish false legitimacy. I also mentioned how emotional you've been since William died, how sometimes you get confused about arrangements." His smile was predatory. "If there's trouble, they'll know who to believe." The threat was clear if I escalated. He would paint me as unstable. "You have until morning to pack and leave," I stated firmly. "Both of you." "Make me," Daniel replied. "Call the cops. I'll show them the mail I've forwarded, the utilities in my name. I'll tell them about our verbal agreement that you're backing out of. I'll have poor pregnant Emma crying about homelessness." I saw Daniel clearly for the first time, not as family, but as someone willing to manipulate and bully for what he wanted. unable to stay. I grabbed my purse and keys. Outside, I sat in my car, hands trembling. How had a simple weekend getaway become this nightmare I called my best friend Lauren? "He's done what?" she exclaimed after I explained. "That's criminal, Maya. He's thought of everything. He's manipulated it so I look like the villain. Document everything. Take photos. Record conversations if legal in your state. Call a lawyer tomorrow. What about tonight? I can't stay with him here, but I can't leave them alone either. Is there a hotel nearby?" There was an inn 20 minutes away. Before leaving, I began photographing the truck, boxes, changed locks evidence. As I finished, Daniel emerged. "Running away," he taunted. "Typical. When things get tough, you've always retreated." I began recording video, keeping it partially concealed. "For the record, you do not have permission to be on this property. You are trespassing, and I am formally asking you to leave." Daniel's demeanor changed when he realized I was recording. "Turn that off," he snapped, reaching for my phone. I stepped back. "Touch me or my property and it becomes assault." His face contorted with rage. "You think you're so clever. Perfect Maya, who gets everything handed to her while the rest of us struggle." The outburst revealed years of resentment. This wasn't just about the cabin, it was about perceived injustice in Daniel's mind. But what struck me was the pain beneath his anger. For the first time, I glimpsed the desperation driving his actions. Daniel wasn't just entitled, he was drowning. "This isn't about me," I said calmly, still recording. "This is about your choices." Emma appeared on the porch. Having overheard, "You told me Maya had offered us the cabin," she said to Daniel, voice quavering. "You said it was arranged." Daniel spun around. "Get inside, Emma. This doesn't concern you." "It absolutely concerns me. You've risked our baby's future with lies." "Where are we supposed to go?" "We are staying here," Daniel insisted. "Maya is being unreasonable." "By not letting you steal my property," I interjected. Emma descended the steps with difficulty. "I can't be part of this." "Daniel, you promised honesty after everything with Sarah. Don't side with her after everything I've done for you and the baby." "What you've done is lie to me," Emma said, tears streaming. She turned to me. "I'm so sorry. Maya, I had no idea." Suddenly, Emma gasped and clutched her belly, doubling over. "Emma," I rushed forward. "Are you okay?" Sharp pain. She winced. "They've been happening all day." Alarm bells rang. "How far apart?" "Maybe 20 minutes. Probably just Braxton Hicks. We should get you checked. 7 months is too early for real labor." Daniel stood frozen, paralyzed by the medical situation and his collapsing plans. "I'll take her to the hospital," I decided, glaring at Daniel. "You stay here and start packing. When we return, I expect progress." The nearest hospital was 45 minutes away in Riverside. As I drove, Emma called her doctor, who advised getting checked, but reassured her that stress-induced contractions were common. "I'm so embarrassed," Emma said. "I had no idea Daniel was lying." "It's not your fault. Daniel is manipulative. He's been doing that a lot lately. Telling me one thing, then I discover it wasn't true." "Like what?" "He told me he and Sarah were separated 6 months before we got involved. I later learned it was barely 2 weeks." Emma's voice was heavy with regret. "He said he told her about us. But she called me at work, completely shocked." The pieces fell into place. "When did you find out about the pregnancy?" "Christmas. I wanted to end things when I realized his lies. But then—" She touched her belly protectively. "I couldn't go through with termination, and Daniel suddenly became all in baby names, nursery plans, marriage talk. Complete turnaround from the man who said he wasn't sure about kids. At the hospital, the doctor confirmed false alarm, stress, and dehydration, but advised rest and avoiding tension while waiting for discharge papers. I called the county sheriff's non-emergency line. Unfortunately, Ms. Chen, this falls into a gray area, Sheriff Martinez explained. If he's established residency claims, even fraudulent ones, it becomes civil. But he just arrived today. I have proof I denied permission. That helps. We can treat it as trespassing. I can send a deputy to ensure he leaves peacefully. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. We should be back in 2 hours. I'll have Deputy Williams meet you at 6 p.m. Document everything: photos, videos, texts. If this escalates to court, you'll need evidence. During the drive back, I explained the sheriff's call. Emma agreed to go directly to a hotel while I returned with the deputy. I can't afford a hotel, Emma worried. I've been on unpaid leave for 3 weeks. I've got it covered. This isn't your mess to fix. When Deputy Williams and I arrived at 6 p.m., the scene was worse than imagined. The front door stood open, and inside, furniture was overturned with several of Grandpa's photos shattered on the floor. Looks like someone had a tantrum, Williams observed, hand moving to his weapon. We found Daniel in the backyard, burning papers in the fire pit. Seeing the deputy, his expression flickered between defiance and fear. Daniel Torres, Williams called. I'm Deputy Williams. We've received a trespassing complaint. Daniel straightened, adopting an injured expression. There's been a misunderstanding. Officer, this is family property. I'm within my rights. I stepped forward with documents. I have the deed and my grandfather's will. The property belongs solely to me. Mr. Torres has no ownership rights. Williams reviewed the papers. These appear in order. Mr. Torres, Miss Chen has legal right to determine property access. We had a verbal agreement, Daniel insisted. I have texts proving otherwise, I countered, showing our exchange. Williams turned to Daniel. You have 2 options. Leave voluntarily with your belongings, or be arrested for criminal trespassing. For a tense moment, I thought Daniel might choose arrest. His face contorted with rage as his plan collapsed. This is ridiculous, he shouted. I have rights. I have nowhere to go. His desperation finally showed through the manipulation. You put yourself here, I said firmly. You lied, manipulated, and trespassed. Daniel lunged toward me, but William stepped between us. Sir, calm down now, or leave in handcuffs. You think you're perfect. Daniel snarled over the deputy's shoulder. Little Maya, who gets everything handed to her. Well, guess what? I'm broke desperate, and you're sitting on this gold mine doing nothing. The truth spilled out: his debts, failed investments, his need for the cabin as financial salvation. But instead of evoking sympathy, his desperation only highlighted his manipulation. That's enough, Mr. Torres, Williams said firmly. 1 hour to gather belongings and leave. It took 2 hours for Daniel to pack. With each box, his resentment grew. As he prepared to leave, he fixed me with a cold stare. This isn't over, Maya. The family will hear how you treated a pregnant woman. I'll sue for my rightful share. I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. Williams stepped between us. Any harassment will result in additional charges. Daniel climbed into his truck while Williams ensured the moving van had alternate instructions. As the vehicles disappeared, relief washed over me. Williams handed me his card. Call immediately if he returns. I suggest changing locks tonight. I can recommend an emergency locksmith. After he left, I stood in the ransacked cabin surveying damage. It wasn't just overturned furniture that hurt. It was the violation of my sanctuary. But as I began picking up Grandpa's shattered photo frames, carefully preserving the images, I made a silent promise. I would reclaim this space, Daniel's actions wouldn't destroy what this cabin meant. The locksmith arrived within the hour. That night, I slept fitfully on the couch, jumping at every forest sound, wondering if Daniel would return. Morning brought gentle knocking. Disoriented and wary, I peered through the peephole to find Sarah holding coffee cups and a bakery bag. "Reinforcements?" she announced when I opened the door. "I drove up when you texted about the locks." The simple gesture brought tears. We hugged tightly before surveying the remaining chaos. "Daniel always was a sore loser," Sarah remarked. "But this is new, even for him." We spent the morning cleaning, restoring order. Sarah told me more about their marriage's deterioration, Daniel's obsession with financial status, increasing manipulation when things didn't go his way. "You deserved better," I told her as we swept glass. "So did Emma," Sarah replied, surprising me. "She's young and impressionable. Daniel makes you believe you're special until you're not useful anymore." By afternoon, we'd restored most of the cabin, though emotional wounds remained raw. I called Emma to check on her, relieved to hear she was resting at the hotel. "I've been thinking," I told her. "I know people at Mountain Women's Resource Center in Riverside. They have transitional housing. Would you like me to make a call?" Emma's voice brightened. "Really? That would be amazing. I was panicking about next steps." I made the connection, and by evening, Emma had Monday intake scheduled, not permanent, but safety and stability while she figured out her path. That evening, Sarah and I sat on the dock, feet dangling in cool water as Grandpa William and I used to do. The sunset painted the lake orange and pink, beautiful contrast to the day's ugliness. "Do you think Daniel will cause more trouble?" Sarah asked. I sighed. "Probably. He's wounded and vengeful, but I've spoken with a lawyer, and my ownership is ironclad. He could try poisoning family relationships." "Mom and Dad are already on your side," Sarah assured me. I filled them in. They're horrified. Over the next few days, we established new rhythms. Sarah decided to stay for the week, working remotely while I did the same. We took breaks to swim, hike, and reconnect as sisters. The next day brought unexpected discovery. While cleaning the bedroom Daniel and Emma had briefly occupied, I found overdue bills hidden in a dresser, credit statements showing maxed accounts. Foreclosure notice on rental property I hadn't known Daniel owned, demand letter from a payday loan company. "He's broke," I realized, showing Sarah the papers. "That's why he was desperate for the cabin." Sarah examined them. "This explains the sudden interest in family property and free housing." I felt clarity wash over me. Daniel wasn't just entitled, he was financially desperate. This didn't excuse his behavior, but explained its intensity. He hadn't just wanted the cabin, he'd needed it as a lifeline. I also visited Emma at the Women's Center, bringing her remaining belongings and helping navigate single mother resources. Despite circumstances, we developed tentative friendship. "Daniel keeps calling," she confided during one visit. Alternating between apologies and accusations, the counselor says that's typical manipulation. "Are you talking to him?" Emma shook her head. "I'm focusing on making a stable plan for this baby. I can't have that chaos in our lives." Her strength impressed me. In the midst of pregnancy, homelessness, and heartbreak, she was making difficult but healthy choices. 10 days later, I received certified mail from an attorney representing Daniel, claiming he'd established tenancy and demanding compensation for illegal eviction. My lawyer responded with documented evidence texts denying permission, Deputy Williams' statement, and property deed clearly in my name. We never heard from Daniel's attorney again. 3 weeks later, I discovered another blessing from Grandpa William. While reorganizing his desk, I found a leather journal I'd never seen. Inside, dated entries chronicled thoughts about family, property, and legacy. An entry from 2 months before his death caught my eye. "Decided to leave the cabin to Maya alone. Some might call it favoritism. but it's about stewardship. She understands this place isn't just property. It's a sanctuary demanding respect and offering wisdom in return. Others see it as an asset, but Maya sees its soul. She'll face pressure to share ownership or usage, but I hope she stands firm. Some gifts aren't meant to be divided. Their power lies in their wholeness. The hardest lesson is learning that protecting something precious sometimes means disappointing people you love. That's the test of true character. Tears streamed as I read his words, even from beyond. Grandpa William had anticipated my challenges and offered encouragement to stand firm. That entry became my touchstone in difficult months that followed. I had it framed beside the fireplace reminder of both grandfather's wisdom and my hard-won boundaries. I also took practical steps to protect the property. Security cameras were installed at entry points. A proper rental agreement was drafted for any family members who might use the cabin, with clear terms and time limits. Property boundaries were formally surveyed and marked. These measures weren't about paranoia, they were about establishing clear boundaries and expectations, honoring the sanctuary Grandpa William had entrusted to me. Slowly, the cabin reclaimed its peaceful atmosphere. The bedroom briefly intended as nursery was converted back to a reading nook, then eventually into a small office where I could work remotely, extending stays from weekends to weeks. By the 3-month mark, emotional rawness had begun healing. The cabin no longer felt tainted by Daniel's intrusion, but strengthened by boundaries I'd established to protect it. One evening, sitting on the dock, watching fireflies dance over darkening water, I realized something important. In defending my inheritance, I had also inherited Grandpa's courage to stand firm on what matters most, wisdom to recognize when kindness requires boundaries. That revelation felt like the final piece in my healing journey. The cabin was more than ever my sanctuary now, not because it was unchanged, but because I had fought for it, reclaimed it, and made it mine in a deeper way. A month later, Emma gave birth to a healthy boy she named River. I visited them in the hospital, bringing a small stuffed trout that reminded me of fish swimming in Moonrise Lake. "Aunt Maya is here," Emma told the tiny bundle, surprising me with the honorary title. "Aunt," I questioned softly, "you've been more family to us than River's actual father." Emma explained, "Daniel hasn't even called about the birth." That moment crystallized something important. Family isn't always defined by blood or marriage. Sometimes it's formed through crisis, compassion, and choices we make in difficult moments. 3 months after the invasion, life had found new equilibrium. Daniel's legal threats had fizzled when his attorney realized how solid my ownership claim was. My relationship with Sarah had grown stronger through our shared experience of setting boundaries with manipulation. Hazel had found footing at the Women's Resource Center, securing part-time remote work accommodating her newborn. When baby River arrived 6 weeks after the cabin confrontation, their presence added new joy to the old sanctuary. The cabin itself had undergone both physical and emotional restoration. Even my parents visited their first time since Grandpa William passed. They brought his favorite fishing pole, which Daniel had damaged during his tantrum, now professionally restored. "Your grandfather would be proud," Dad said as we stood on the dock. "Not just of how you've maintained the place, but how you defended it." Mom nodded. "It takes courage to hold boundaries, especially with family. William knew you had that strength." Family dynamics had shifted permanently. Daniel remained estranged, having moved to Seattle for a fresh start, according to mutual acquaintances. Sarah had filed for divorce and begun therapy to process the manipulation she'd endured. 1 year later, as autumn painted the surrounding forest in fiery hues, I sat on the dock where Grandpa William and I used to have evening talks. I'd been reading his journal, and one passage resonated with everything I'd learned. Property isn't just land or buildings, it's a responsibility, a trust. When you own something, you become its steward, not just its possessor. The cabin isn't valuable because of market price. It's valuable because of wisdom it holds, memories it keeps, sanctuary it provides. But remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is saying no when everyone expects you to say yes. That's when you discover who you really are. As I closed this chapter, I was grateful for difficult lessons it taught. Learning to stand firm when faced with manipulation, recognizing the difference between genuine need and entitlement, understanding that sometimes the kindest thing is maintaining clear boundaries. The cabin had become something more than I'd imagined, not just my sanctuary, but a place where broken people could learn to heal. Emma visited monthly with River, their laughter filling rooms with new memories while honoring old ones. The annual family 4th of July gathering continued, but with clear guidelines sent in advance and respected by all who attended. Most importantly, I had internalized Grandpa Williams' final lesson: boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're guidelines that teach others how to respectfully remain in your life. I'd learned to say no without guilt, to help others without enabling them, and to distinguish between family members who deserve trust and those who would exploit it. The property had new security measures, cameras, updated locks, formal usage agreements, but these weren't born from fear. They were practical expressions of self-respect, clear communication of values, and protection for the sanctuary that meant so much to so many. My work life had improved dramatically as well. Standing up to Daniel had given me confidence to negotiate better conditions at Sterling Communications. I now worked remotely 3 weeks each month, splitting time between the city and the lake. As last light faded from the autumn sky, I raised my wine glass to the lake, to Grandpa's memory, and to the hard-won peace of knowing I could protect what mattered most. "Thanks for the lesson, Grandpa," I whispered to the evening air. "I finally understand what you meant about this place having a soul. It's not just about memories. It's about the courage to honor them." And a gentle breeze rustled through pine trees, carrying wood smoke scent from my fireplace and clean smell of lake water. Somewhere in the distance, a loon called across the water the same haunting sound that had lullabied me to sleep during formative childhood summers. The cabin stood behind me, lights glowing warmly, ready to offer sanctuary to those who approached with respect, just as Grandpa William had always intended. The wraparound porch where we'd shared conversations, the stone fireplace where he'd taught me to build lasting fires, the dock where we'd dangled feet and solved life's problems all remained, protected and preserved for future generations who would understand its true value. Sometimes the strongest act of love is simply saying no when everything and everyone pressures you to say yes. I had learned that lesson the hard way, but it was a lesson that would serve me and those I chose to help for the rest of my life. In protecting my boundaries, I had discovered not just my strength, but my capacity for genuine compassion. The difference between helping someone like Emma, who respected my generosity and worked to build independence, and enabling someone like Daniel, who saw kindness as weakness to exploit. The journal entry that had guided me through darkest moments was now framed beside the fireplace, illuminated by warm glow of flames. Some gifts aren't meant to be divided. Their power lies in their wholeness. The sanctuary was safe, the boundaries were clear, and I was finally, truly home. Through the window, I could see River's stuffed trout sitting on the mantel next to Grandpa Williams' restored fishing pole, symbols of continuity and change, of honoring the past while nurturing the future. This cabin would continue to be a place where character was built, where wisdom was shared, and where those who understood its soul could find peace and strength they needed. The sacred boundaries I had fought so hard to establish weren't barriers. They were the very foundation that allowed love, respect, and genuine connection to flourish. In learning to protect what mattered most, I had discovered what family truly meant, not those who share your blood, but those who honor your heart. And in the quiet peace of the cabin that night, with the lake whispering against the shore and fire crackling softly in the hearth. I knew that Grandpa William's greatest gift wasn't the property itself. It was the wisdom to know when to hold on and when to let go, when to give and when to withhold, when to open your heart and when to guard it fiercely. The cabin's soul lived on, stronger than ever, ready to teach its lessons to anyone wise enough to listen. Emma watched as 3-year-old River crouched by the edge of Moonrise Lake, his chubby fingers carefully placing a toy boat into the water. The late afternoon sun caught the auburn highlights in his hair, the only physical reminder of his father that didn't make her stomach clench. "Boat go fast, Mama!" River squealed, clapping as the gentle waves carried his vessel toward the dock where Maya sat reading, her feet dangling in the cool water just as her grandfather had taught her years ago. "Very fast, sweetie," Emma agreed, settling onto the sandy beach beside her son. 3 years. Had it really been that long since the chaos at this very cabin had upended everything she thought she knew about her life? The Mountain Women's Resource Center had been her salvation that first terrifying month. River had been born healthy and strong at 38 weeks, and Emma had learned to navigate single motherhood with the support of counselors who understood manipulation and its aftermath. She'd completed her nursing degree through their educational program and now worked as a pediatric nurse at Riverside General Hospital. But it was Maya who had become the family she'd never expected. "Aunt Maya," River called out, using the title that had evolved naturally over monthly visits to the cabin. "Come see boat." Maya looked up from her book, something by Toni Morrison that Emma had recommended, and smiled. "Is it faster than the fish?" River considered this seriously, his little brow furrowed in concentration. "Maybe. Fish are very fast." Emma watched the interaction with the same wonder she felt every time. Maya could have easily cut all ties after that nightmare 3 years ago. Instead, she'd chosen to weave Emma and River into the fabric of her chosen family, treating them with the same fierce protection she showed the cabin itself. "You know," Maya said, closing her book and sliding into the shallow water, "I think your mama was about your age when I first came to this lake." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really, I don't remember being 3 here." "I meant your first time feeling truly safe somewhere," Maya clarified gently, understanding the deeper meaning. "Sometimes we need to find our sanctuary at different ages." It was true. Emma had found safety at 28, standing in a hospital room holding her newborn son, while Maya promised that things would get better. She'd found peace in the gradual rebuilding of her life, in the slow recognition that kindness without manipulation actually existed. River had found his sanctuary even earlier, in the warm embrace of chosen family, in summer afternoons at a lake where the only expectations were to be loved. They'd never heard from Daniel after that initial flurry of legal threats. Through Sarah. They'd learned he'd remarried quickly in Seattle, another young woman who worked at his new company. Emma had felt a pang of sympathy for the unknown woman, but also profound relief that it was no longer her problem to solve. "Mama, why did my first daddy go away?" River asked suddenly, with the startling directness that only toddlers possessed. Emma's breath caught. They'd practiced this conversation with her therapist, but she'd hoped for a few more years before facing it. Maya remained still in the water, letting Emma take the lead while offering her steady presence. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people make choices that hurt others, even when they don't mean to," Emma said carefully. "Your first daddy was going through some very hard times, and he made some choices that weren't good for any of us. But that doesn't mean anything about you. Okay, you are perfect exactly as you are." River nodded solemnly, processing this in the way children do, accepting what makes sense and storing the rest for later. "But I have Aunt Maya and Aunt Sarah and Grandma Beth and Grandpa William's spirit." Emma's throat tightened. River had never met Grandpa William, but Maya shared stories about him so vividly that the child spoke of him like a beloved relative. In a way, he was part of the legacy of love and wisdom that flowed through the cabin to anyone who needed it. "That's right, baby. We have a wonderful family. And we help other people who are sad, like the ladies at Mama's work." Emma smiled. River had accompanied her to several resource center events for children, playing with other kids while their mothers attended support groups. At 3, he already understood that families came in many forms and that some people needed extra help finding their way to safety. As evening approached, they moved to the cabin's porch for dinner. Maya had become an excellent cook over the years, though she still burned pancakes more often than not. Tonight was grilled salmon with vegetables from the garden she'd planted in Grandpa William's memory. "I have something for you," Maya said to River after dinner, disappearing into the cabin and returning with a small wrapped package. River tore at the paper with enthusiastic 3-year-old energy, revealing a child-sized fishing pole with his name engraved on the handle. Grandpa William's first lesson was always fishing, Maya explained to Emma, then knelt down to River's level. "But the most important rule is that we only take what we need, and we're always grateful to the fish for sharing their home with us." Emma's eyes filled with tears, watching Maya initiate her son into the traditions that had shaped her own character. This was what family really meant, not the obligations Daniel had tried to impose, but the gift of belonging that Maya offered freely. Later, after Rivers had fallen asleep in the cabin's small guest room that Maya had converted into a child-friendly space complete with nature-themed decorations, the two women sat on the dock with wine and watched stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked quietly. "Not helping Daniel that day, I know he was family." Maya was quiet for a long moment, considering. "I regret that he felt so desperate that manipulation seemed like his only option. I regret that Sarah got hurt. But defending this place, setting those boundaries, no. That choice led to you and River being in our lives. It led to understanding what healthy love looks like." Emma nodded, watching the moonlight dance on the lake's surface. "I used to think love meant accepting whatever someone gave you, even if it hurt. Now I know it means expecting respect as the baseline, not the exception." "River will never have to learn that lesson the hard way," Maya said softly. "He's growing up knowing he deserves kindness." As they prepared for bed, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 3 years ago, she'd been a pregnant woman displaced by lies, desperate and afraid. Now she was a confident single mother with a career she loved, a chosen family that supported her, and most importantly, the knowledge that she could protect her son from the kind of manipulation that had once derailed her life. The cabin had indeed worked its magic, not through mystical means, but through the simple, radical act of one woman choosing to extend grace to another when it would have been easier to turn away. Tomorrow, Maya would teach River to cast his new fishing line. Emma would take photos to add to the album documenting their extended family's growth. And the cycle of love and wisdom that Grandpa William had entrusted to Maya would continue, reaching into the future through the hands of a little boy who would grow up knowing that family meant safety, that boundaries meant love, and that some sanctuaries are worth protecting with everything you have. The lake whispered against the shore, carrying their stories into the night, adding new chapters to the legacy of Moonrise Lake,